In the heart of the city, a tower of glass and steel rose high above the streets. Inside, the hum of ambition filled the air, and in an office on the 32nd floor, Emily Bell was typing away at her computer. Emily was known for her sharp mind, quick decisions, and a clear no-nonsense attitude. Everyone admired her tenacity, but not many could escape the undercurrent of intimidation that surrounded her every day. On this particular Tuesday, Jake Thompson, a junior analyst, stood outside her office. He wore a crisp suit, but his hands were clammy. It was his first real job, and he wanted to make a good impression. Deep down, he wanted to prove himself not just to his boss, but to everyone watching. Jake took a deep breath, then knocked. "Come in," she called, not looking up from her screen. He stepped inside and closed the door gently behind him. "I wanted to talk about the budget report." "Discrepancies," she interrupted, her voice sharp. Jake felt his stomach twist. "On line 6, there's an extra 0. "I don't have time for this right now," Emily snapped, her voice cutting through his words. His heart sank. It was as if each word was a brick, building a wall between them. He had come in hoping to be heard, but now he felt smaller than ever. She replied, frustration evident in her tone. He wanted to argue, to explain that he hadn't been given the chance, but the moment passed, and instead he felt his voice falter. "Okay, I understand. I'll fix it," he mumbled before retreating. As he walked away, he felt the weight of her dismissal. Still, he clung to the hope that he could prove himself in other ways. He worked late into that night, meticulously going over every detail of the report. He wanted to show Emily he was not just a junior analyst, he was capable. Days turned into weeks and the office buzzed with new projects. And then, one early morning, things changed. Jake arrived at the office to find an email waiting for him. He opened it and his heart raced. It was an invitation to a special seminar, a chance to interact with the upper management team and develop skills that could catapult his career forward. He felt the fire of ambition in his chest. This was his moment. As the days went by, he prepared himself meticulously. He researched every executive who would attend. He practiced his pitch, ready to engage even if others had their doubts about him. This was his opportunity to rise above, to finally get noticed. On the day of the seminar, the air buzzed with excitement. Employees in designer suits mingled, exchanging jokes and stories while sipping on their lattes. Jake stood to the side, a little more nervous than he wished to admit. He saw Emily across the room, chatting confidently with a group of senior executives. Jake took a deep breath and made his way toward the gathering. Just as he approached, he overheard some words that hit him hard. One executive asked another, "You know, the access list for the executive elevator?" "Yeah, I heard. Some names are appearing that I didn't expect." "Makes you wonder how they got there," said another voice with a tone of disbelief. Jake's heart raced. Was he hearing things right? His name, was it really mentioned? Before he could clarify, Emily caught his eye, signaling for him to join the conversation. The group welcomed him with smiles, but he felt the weight of their earlier words. "Jake, just the person I wanted to talk to," Emily said, smiling brightly now, her earlier anger nowhere in sight. Sure," he replied, trying to shake off the previous tension. "I was just telling them about the team projects, and I think we should consider your budget ideas. You have an eye for detail after all. I might have misjudged you," she said, her voice brighter now. His mind raced. Did she really mean that? Only days ago he was just trying to convince her he was worth her time. The irony of the moment hit him. She had dismissed him, but now there she was, appreciating his work. Jake nodded, trying to keep his composure. "I appreciate that, Emily." The conversation flowed, and for the first time, Jake felt part of the big legs. Emily listened to him, really listened, and he finally felt he had a seat at the adult table. But in the back of his mind, he could still hear that lingering doubt echoing from weeks before. "Can't wait for the executive reports next quarter," one of the executives said. "They're crucial for the upcoming budget." Jake felt a lump in his throat. Is that what he needed to focus on? Would he have to prove himself again, or would he be allowed to participate in this elite circle? Days rolled on. Jake's name started crossing the lips of not just Emily, but others in the office, and it felt surreal. He found himself working alongside the executives, even getting praises now and again. One day, Emily even asked him to join her on a project. As they spent more time together, the tension that once existed melted away. Emily's demeanor changed. She seemed softer now, but Jake never forgot how she had dismissed him at the beginning. Then came the day when the email arrived. It announced that Jake's name had officially been added to the executive elevator access list. He stared at it in disbelief. A mix of joy and a strange sense of vindication surged through him. The rightness of that moment filled him with confidence. He took a picture of the email and sent it to his close friend, a proud grin spreading across his face. With shaky hands, he finally built up the courage to walk toward the executive elevator, the sleek metal gleaming in the fluorescent light. As he pressed the button, the doors opened for him. Step by step, he ascended to the floor of power and decisions. Each ding of the elevator felt like a proclamation of all his hard work. The view of the city through the tinted glass reflected not just the skyline but his own ambition. When he stepped off the elevator, he felt different. That day, he stood tall, ready to face whatever came next. A week later, the tension in the office returned when another company announcement came through. Emily was being promoted. It was a moment that should have filled her with joy, but Jake could sense a weight on her shoulders. She had reached a higher tier and suddenly felt the pressure of expectations. Shortly afterward, they were called in for a meeting. The atmosphere was thick, and Jake could feel Emily's anxiety as they presented the new project. Midway through, she couldn't quite find her words when responding to an executive's questions. Jake looked at her, sensing her distress, so he stepped up. He addressed the room with clarity, speaking from their carefully prepared notes. The executives listened, and he felt the pride swelling up in Emily's eyes as she finally relaxed. When the meeting concluded, Jake received pats on the back from the executives, but the real energy in the room was between him and Emily. As they left the meeting room, he saw her smile for the first time without tension. "Jake, thank you," she said softly. He wanted to tell her that it was okay, that he understood her struggle all too well. Dismissals can come from fear or perhaps insecurity, but he held off on saying that. Instead, he simply replied, "You're welcome." Through the months that followed, Emily became a mentor to Jake. In turn, she learned to value his perspective, and they created a stronger bond between them. He realized that while her initial dismissal stung, it became a part of their journey, a journey of growth, understanding, and collaboration. One late afternoon, as they worked side by side, Jake glanced over at her. "You know, I still remember that first meeting," he admitted with a chuckle. Emily laughed, a soft, genuine sound that warmed the room. "I was wrong, Jake." His heart felt full. They had both learned something important. Sometimes people dismiss you, not because of your worth, but because of their struggles. In those moments of dismissal, resilience shines through, lighting the way to understanding. As they moved through their new roles, they could face the challenges ahead together. And Jake learned that every road has its bumps, but those bumps often lead to something beautiful. The elevator doors slid open, revealing a sleek, modern office adorned with glass and chrome. Inside, a team of executives stood chatting, the low hum of their laughter echoing off the walls. Among them walked Sarah, the company's rising star, exuding confidence in every step. Just last week, she had received praise for her innovative thinking, but today her moment would change in a way she never expected. As she strolled through the bustling office, a familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. "Sarah," it was Tom, a junior analyst whose brow was furrowed with concern. "Not now, Tom," she replied, her tone brisk as she brushed past him. Sarah had important meetings to attend, and she wasn't in the mood for complaints. Tom hesitated, looking as if he might burst with urgency. She turned her back on him, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. In that moment, dismissing Tom felt necessary. Her agenda was already packed with crucial discussions. Surely he could wait, but what she didn't know was how significant his complaint truly was. The day progressed, and Sarah became absorbed in meetings, presentations, and networking, losing herself in the whirlwind of corporate life. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, a shadow fell over her successes. The following morning, rumors began to swirl around the office, whispers traveling like wildfire. Someone asked. A chill ran down Sarah's spine. The executive elevator was more than just a way to get to the higher floors. It was the gateway to power, prestige, and influence. Only a select few had keys to that door. "I hear they're promoting some unexpected names," another colleague chimed in, making Sarah's heart race. Jake, the very name she had just dismissed the day before, a nobody she had thought, merely a junior analyst with an overzealous attitude. Suddenly her dismissive tone felt heavy, weighing on her like a storm cloud. As Sarah continued her day, her mind was torn between curiosity and dread. How could someone like Jake, quiet, unsure, and unrecognized, be invited to stand among the executives? It didn't make sense. Had she miscalculated? Later that week, she found herself in a critical meeting. The board members sat across from her, their eyes analyzing every word she spoke. It was in this room, with the pressure of expectations smothering her, that she realized how quickly the tides could turn. "Let's discuss our key performance indicators," Mr. Hudson, the company's CEO, stated. "We have some promising reports from the team I've been particularly impressed by." The room fell silent for a moment, a collective pause where every eye flicked towards Sarah. The weight of her earlier dismissal crushed her under its intensity. All she could think about was how she had waved him off, thinking he was nothing. Jake stood, his demeanor calm and collected. "Thank you, Mr. Hudson. I did some analysis on the budget allocations, and I believe certain shifts could optimize our performance next quarter." His voice filled the space, steady and clear. He presented his findings with confidence, and as Sarah listened, a mix of awe and regret washed over her. She hadn't believed in him, she hadn't even given him a proper chance, and now it was too late. Days progressed, and Jake's ideas began to garner respect. The buzz around the office escalated. His name continued to echo in meetings with higher-ups, his insights becoming critical to the direction of the company. In contrast, Sarah found herself questioning everything. She had watched from the sidelines as Jake rose. The moment of dismissal haunted her. She felt it gripping her like a question mark, stretching her confidence thin. Who was she really if she failed to recognize talent when she saw it? One morning, Sarah entered the office and spotted the memo on the bulletin board. Her heart raced as she read the list of names slated for the executive elevator access. Among the familiar names were the usual suspects, yet there it was, Jake Thompson, bold and clear. Her palms felt clammy as she recalled Tom's anxious voice from days ago. The truth dawning on her made guilt wash over her like frost on a winter morning. That day, Sarah's mind lingered on the idea that sometimes the people we disregard are the very ones who surprise us the most. The irony struck. She had aimed to be part of the upper echelon, to be at the top of her game, only to snub someone who now stood shoulder to shoulder with those she once considered her peers. As the weeks rolled on, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that time was slipping through her fingers. She needed to make a change but didn't know how to approach Jake. Would he even want to hear from her anymore? Then came a pivotal meeting, a project launch that required collaborative ideas. She was surprised to find Jake sitting at the table, engaged in discussions already bubbling over with enthusiasm. As they went around the room sharing their insights, Sarah felt the weight of her earlier actions taking shape. With each passing moment, she hesitated. She wanted to mend things, to apologize, but the fear of his rejection held her back. Then fate took another turn. As the meeting approached its end, Jake locked eyes with her, his gaze steady yet questioning. All at once, she felt a rush, like a final chance to be heard. His slip of the tongue echoed everything she had held back. I think we could approach this from a different angle, perhaps." The words tumbled out, but the sincerity behind them rang true. Jake nodded, genuinely interested. "That's a good point." In that instant, Sarah saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes. He wasn't bitter, rather, he was open to collaboration, and that made all the difference. Days turned to weeks, and under the uncomfortable weight of time, their relationship began to shift. The more they collaborated, the more Sarah respected Jake's insight. He wasn't just the junior analyst she had dismissed. He was an asset to the team, a partner in every sense. One afternoon, they sat at a coffee shop reflecting on the past months. "You know, I really underestimated you," Sarah admitted, her heart pounding with honesty. "When I dismissed your concerns about the budget, I was completely wrong." Jake looked up from his coffee, his eyes sharp and clear. He didn't smile, but understanding danced behind his gaze. "Everyone has their own battles. I just hope you can forgive yourself for that moment." She felt the truth of his words wash over her, and for the first time, she understood that sometimes recognition is a two-way street. As the weeks rolled into months, Sarah began to evolve, not just as a leader, but as a person. With Jake's influence, she learned to value every voice, realizing her responsibility in amplifying those around her, rather than dismissing them. Then came the day they announced a new initiative in the company, designed entirely based on the principles both of them cultivated. Jake took the lead on the presentation, and Sarah proudly stood beside him. When the announcement hit the airwaves, applause echoed around the room. From the back, she could see those early executives who had once doubted her walk forward with pride, this time standing alongside Jake. "Thank you, everyone," Jake began. "This initiative demonstrates that we're all capable of stepping into our own light, regardless of how small we may feel in this grand scheme." The room erupted in applause, and Sarah felt a sense of joy wash over her. Jake had become more than just an unexpected colleague. He had become a friend and a force of nature, one who challenged her to think deeper and grow taller. In the days to follow, she continued to draw strength from their partnership. She learned to give recognition where it was due, to nurture talent, and to never underestimate another's potential again. The executive elevator access list now felt like a shared pathway, not an exclusive club. And in that moment of victory, as they both stepped into the elevator side by side, Sarah realized that in a world full of dismissals and second chances, sometimes the person you overlook is the key to unlocking your true potential. The morning sun poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the high-rise office, casting long shadows across the conference room table. Emily, the head of marketing, sat at the head of the table, her fingers dancing across her laptop as she finalized her presentation. Today was important. Today could decide her future. She could already envision the applause, the compliments, the rush of adrenaline, but just then a voice shattered her focus. It was Mark, a junior analyst, standing awkwardly at the door. He looked disheveled, his brow furrowed in worry. "What is it, Mark? I'm busy," she snapped, her tone brisk and impatient. He took a hesitant step forward, clutching a stack of documents like a lifeline. "I really think you need to take a look at the latest budget report." Emily felt irritation bubbling beneath her skin. Didn't he understand that she was preparing for crucial discussions with the executives? "This isn't the time, Mark." She cut him off, waving a hand dismissively before turning back to her screen. Mark stood frozen for a heartbeat, then retreated, the door clicking shut behind him. As the minutes ticked away, the board members trickled in, their conversations buzzing like static electricity in the air. Emily felt the familiar rush of excitement flood her, but as they began, she couldn't shake the nagging thought that she had brushed off Mark too quickly. The meeting unfolded like a well-rehearsed play. The executives leaned forward, eager to hear Emily's pitch. She dazzled them with statistics and projections. The room sparkled with approval, their nods invigorating her. Then, just as she reached the climax of her presentation, she glanced at Mark's empty seat. A shadow flitted across her confident demeanor as she recalled that moment of dismissal. That evening, as she packed her things to leave, she found her phone buzzing with an unexpected message from a colleague. Her friend texted, Emily's curiosity piqued. The access list was exclusive. Only a select few could rise to the higher floors, the domain of true power. Heart racing, she pulled up the email. There in black and white was Mark's name. He had gained access. No, it couldn't be. In a rush, she scanned through names and titles, searching for a mistake. But there it was, plain as day, Mark. As doubts gnawed at her, she felt her heart thump louder. How could someone she had so casually dismissed be joining the ranks of the elite? The next day, the office was abuzz with the news. Employees exchanged whispers, gossip inevitably swirling around Mark's unexpected rise. Sarah, a peer and friend, sidled up to Emily as she poured coffee. Did you hear about Mark? Crazy doesn't even begin to cover it, Emily replied, her tone laced with disbelief. Emily frowned. I don't know, he does good work, but she felt a tightening in her chest. Could she truly question his merits? As the days wore on, Emily found herself haunted by the image of Mark standing at her office door, desperate to make his case. Recognition began to take root, twisting the previously unshakable certainty that she had made the right decision by dismissing him. Then came another meeting, and once again the board was on edge to hear from Emily. But this time, as she stood at the front of the room, her confidence wavered. She could see Mark sitting quietly, the quiet determination radiating from him. As she presented, she noticed him scribbling notes, his brow furrowing as he concentrated. The sight of him jolted her, an uncomfortable reminder of how easily she had traded his voice for her own ambition. Had she been too focused on her rise to see the value he could contribute? After the meeting, Emily caught Mark in the hallway. He seemed lost in thought, his face serious. She called, her heart pounding. He turned, surprise flickering across his features. Sure. I wanted to apologize, she said, the words spilling out before she could lose her nerve. You know about the other day? Mark looked taken aback. No, it's okay, I just thought. No, she interrupted gently, trying to convey her sincerity. I see how valuable you are. You've shown you have ideas that matter. A brief silence settled between them. Mark sighed, his shoulders easing. Thanks, I appreciate that. It's just, I get it, she replied, and for the first time, Emily truly understood. She had seen the struggle, had felt the hesitation that came with trying to prove oneself in this cutthroat world. Days turned to weeks, and with each passing interaction, Emily began to see a change in Mark. He wasn't just an underdog anymore, he was a rising star. Ideas flowed from him easily, and they often exchanged thoughts, their conversations becoming richer and more collaborative. Then came the moment that would shift everything. A crucial project rolled in, a campaign that could elevate the business to new heights. The team was abuzz with brainstorming, and Mark dove in head first. His passion lit up the room as he pitched one idea after another. But as he reached for a challenging angle, Emily hesitated. The fine line between doubt and praise held tightly in her hands. The old instinct to lead kicked in, but she pushed it away. This wasn't just her show, it was their project. Mark, I think you're onto something, she said, letting her support resonate through the room. What if we take that idea? And the energy shifted, and soon the entire team was livening up, fueled by Mark's enthusiasm and Emily's renewed belief in collaborating rather than competing. The weeks that followed saw them working late into the night, fueled by coffee and shared dreams. Together, they crafted a proposal that merged creativity and strategy, one that took the team to new heights. Then came the day of the presentation, the climax of their hard work and late nights. The board members sat at the other end of the long table, their faces serious and expectant. Emily felt a surge of nerves, but this time Mark stood beside her, equally anxious yet composed. With each slide they revealed, Emily felt the tension of their journey together wash over her. The executives nodded thoughtfully, their attention deepening as Mark showcased the impact of their ideas, bringing the complex data to life with genuine passion. As he spoke, Emily watched him blossom, the once shy analyst now vibrant and confident. Her heart swelled with pride. This was not just her success, it was theirs. When they finished, silence settled in the room. The board members exchanged glances, weighing their feedback. Then Mr. Andrews, the head of the board, leaned forward. Impressive work, both of you. The words felt like a wave crashing down, washing away insecurities and self-doubt. Emily and Mark exchanged glances and shared faint, relieved smiles. They were in this together, no longer just separate entities fighting for respect, but partners collaborating for success. When they received the go-ahead for the campaign, the room erupted into cheers. Emily felt a high she had never experienced. It was one thing to rise through sheer ambition, but another to elevate someone else alongside you. As the days turned into months, their campaign rolled out, becoming the talk of the industry. Emily found herself frequently saying Mark's name with admiration, feeling pride not just for their success, but for the way they had evolved together. Then came the quarterly review, the moment when they would unveil their results. She had poured everything into this presentation, eagerly sharing the accolades and recognition that followed. But as the applause echoed in her ears, she felt a pang of nostalgia washing over her. One evening, while looking at the access list once more, she noticed a striking contrast. It wasn't just her name and marks that graced the document, it was the journey that led them here. A single moment of doubt had transformed into a partnership built on respect and collaboration. As she reflected on how far they had come, Emily recalled her earlier dismissal. Mark wasn't just on the executive elevator access list, he was a crucial voice in the navigating halls of power. And as she joined him on the elevator that day, she knew they would continue to rise, not just on their own, but together. Together, they could break barriers, defy norms, and rewrite the narrative of who truly deserved to stand at the top. Sometimes, the most profound changes begin with a single moment of realization, a willingness to listen, and the recognition that the people we overlook often hold the keys to our own success. As the doors closed behind them, each ascent whispering promises of the future, they rode upward, elated and ready for whatever came next. The office buzzed with energy, the hum of chatter blending with the clatter of keyboards. It was a typical Tuesday morning in a sprawling corporate tower, where ambition climbed as high as the skyscrapers that surrounded it. At her desk, Laura Hastings, the ambitious head of marketing, skimmed through her emails, a faint sense of superiority tingling in her veins as she reveled in her title. She was a force to be reckoned with, known for her quick decisions and sharp tongue. Just then the door creaked open, and walked Tim, a junior analyst whom Laura barely knew. His eyes darted nervously as he made his way toward her. "Excuse me, Laura," he hesitated, clutching a file tightly. "Make it quick, Tim." "I've got a lot on my plate," she replied, her voice cool and dismissive. The weight of her important day felt heavy already. Tim took a breath, clearly weighing his words. "I wanted to talk about the quarterly budget. I noticed some discrepancies." Laura raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing at the corners of her lips. "Discrepancies? I don't have time for nitpicking." She leaned back, crossing her arms, but he stammered, desperation creeping into his voice. "Tim, this is not the time," she shot back, her tone cutting through his hesitation like a knife. Silence hung heavy in the air as Tim's expression faltered. With a slight nod, he turned and left, the weight of her words trailing behind him. Laura felt a flutter of guilt, but quickly brushed it aside. It was just business. Tough decisions were part of the job. Days rolled on, the morning sun pouring through the glass walls of the office, illuminating the swirls of ambition that danced within. Laura focused on securing her spot in the upper echelons of the company. She sat in meetings filled with executives, weaving her ideas into beautiful tapestries that dazzled the decision makers. But one thing started to gnaw at her, the name that echoed through the hallways, Tim. She kept hearing whispers of his growing reputation. It felt foreign to her, almost like a joke. How could he suddenly be the talk of the office? After all, just last week, she had brushed him off. Then, just as her thoughts circled, an email pinged into her inbox. A colleague had forwarded a memo announcing changes to the executive elevator access, a coveted list that only a select few could get on. Her heart raced as she opened the document, scanning the names. First, she spotted executives she expected to see. Then her breath caught. Tim's name was there. Tim, the junior analyst. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. How had she missed this? How had she dismissed someone so pivotal? As she stared at the screen, she felt anger boiling inside her, not at Tim, but at herself. She dismissed his complaint without a second thought, and now he was not only rising but driving the very ship she was supposed to captain. "Laura," a colleague asked, interrupting her train of thought. "Yeah, I'm fine," she replied, masking her internal turmoil with a tight smile. But deep down, her confidence began to fray. Later that day, as she moved from her office to the break room, she bumped into Tim. He looked more collected, a spring in his step that hadn't been there before. The realization ate at her. The boy she had dismissed was blossoming right before her eyes. He greeted, genuine enthusiasm lighting up his face. "Did you see the latest projections I put out?" The word slipped from her lips, flat and unenthusiastic. She felt a spike of embarrassment, yet pride stole a glance back. "I haven't had the chance to review them." Tim nodded, clearly unfazed by her indifferent tone. "I think a few changes could boost our reach by another 20%. She crossed her arms, a defensive posture taking hold. Of course, a rush of anger crested inside her. How dare he take the initiative after she had dismissed him? But as she watched him walk away, determination etched on his face, something deep inside her flickered with doubt. The days passed, and as the team meeting approached, Laura couldn't shake off her growing unease. Tim's reputation continued to skyrocket, and whispers buzzed that he might even lead the next big campaign. The thought made her stomach churn. When meeting day arrived, the room was packed with employees, the air thick with anticipation. As Laura presented, she could feel a sense of dread creeping in. Would Tim steal the spotlight? Would he unveil his big ideas, perhaps even overshadow her work? Sure enough, when it was Tim's turn, he stood confidently at the front of the room, eyes steady, a clear plan swirling on the screen behind him. "I'm excited to share my findings," he began. As he delved into his analysis, something remarkable happened. The room became captivated. Laura watched as people nodded along, appreciating his insights. She felt a pang of regret. No, it was more than regret. It was humiliation for having overlooked his potential so easily. After the meeting concluded, the executives praised Tim's contributions, while Laura stood quietly in the background. She forced a smile as applause filled the room, but the weight of her prior dismissal pressed heavily on her chest. When everyone trickled out, only the two of them remained. Tim turned to her, excitement etched all over his face. "Sure," she replied slowly, her tone softer than it had been before. The moment hung in the air, charged with the tension of their previous interactions. As they discussed strategies, Laura began to grasp the depth of Tim's intellect. The junior analyst she had dismissed turned out to be not just bright but incisive, offering angles she had never considered. Days turned into weeks, and Tim became a staple in every important meeting. As projects launched, successes soared, and it became undeniable that Tim's contributions transformed the department. Buzz around him escalated, then came another pivotal moment. The company planned a showcase event to highlight the quarter's achievements, and the executive team was set to present their top talents. Laura knew she had to make a decision. Would she bury her pride, or would she let fear dictate her approach? With a pounding heart, she reached out to Tim. "I was thinking about the showcase. You deserve to be recognized for your hard work." Tim blinked in surprise, a smile breaking across his face. "Really?" They spent countless evenings honing their presentation, each meeting diving deeper into strategies and ideas. Laura found renewed energy in this partnership. For the first time, she felt like they were an unstoppable team. Finally, the day of the showcase arrived. Employees and executives filled the auditorium, the atmosphere crackling with excitement. Laura took the stage, her heart racing but her confidence renewed. As she presented, she felt the weight of her earlier dismissals sliding off her shoulders. When she introduced Tim, she felt a surge of pride. "I want to highlight someone who has impacted our department in ways I couldn't have imagined." As he took the spotlight, Tim began his presentation, and the audience hung on every word. He delivered his insights with the charisma and clarity of a seasoned leader. Laura watched from the side, all blooming within her. This was not the junior analyst she had underestimated. This was a professional in his own right. When they finished, the applause erupted like a thunderstorm, resonating off the walls. Laura felt exhilaration rush through her veins, a wave of validation washing over her. In Tim's joy, she found her journey validated as well. After the event, in a crowded hallway, she approached Tim, who was practically glowing. She said, genuinely amazed. Tim smiled, a hint of disbelief in his eyes. Days turned into weeks of further collaboration, forging a partnership neither had ever expected. Tim's star continued to rise, yet he remained grounded, still expressing gratitude for her mentorship, even while she learned from him. One afternoon, as they sat in a conference room prepping for the next big project, Laura received a text. It was from HR. She clicked it open, and her heart stopped. The latest access list for the executive elevator had been released. Beneath her name, there it was again, Tim Thompson. The realization hit her hard. She felt her pulse quicken, a mix of awe and inspiration flooding her senses. This was a shared milestone, one stemming from all their hard work. When she looked up, she saw Tim briefly glancing at his phone, and suddenly it struck her. They had both fought through misgivings, broke barriers, and risen together. "Hey Tim," she said, her voice steady and genuine. "Can we celebrate our achievements tonight, a team thing?" His eyes lit up. Absolutely. As the evening rolled in and they gathered with other colleagues, it became clear the camaraderie they built meant something deeper. In sharing their successes, they broke the boundaries that once stood in their way, proving that even through dismissal, growth could blossom. Every step of their journey echoed with the lesson that those who seemingly fall behind can surprise you in ways you never imagined. In the end, the elevator access was only a physical manifestation of their growth. Sometimes, the most valuable doors open only when you dare to forge partnerships built on respect and collaboration. With each move forward, they both understood that this was just the beginning. The world ahead was vast and limitless, waiting eagerly for them to rise together. The clamor of the office faded into the background as Laura stared at her computer screen, the buzzing fluorescent lights illuminating the early morning hustle. Her inbox blinked with urgency, but her mind was consumed with the upcoming product launch. This was her chance to shine, to solidify her position as the leading force in the marketing team. Just as she was about to dive into her strategy presentation, a hesitant knock broke the rhythm. Tim, a junior analyst with tousled hair and a nervous demeanor, stood at her door, his hands clasped tightly against the file he clutched. Laura," he asked, uncertainty clouding his expression. "Can't wait, Tim, I'm a bit swamped here," she replied, barely lifting her gaze. "I think it's important. There are some issues in the budget that need addressing before the launch," he insisted, his voice wavering but steady. Laura sighed, irritation bubbling beneath her skin. She didn't have time for this. "Look, we're already tight on deadlines, just make the numbers work." Tim's face fell, disappointment washing over his features. She snapped, her voice rising just enough to signify the end of the conversation. He swallowed hard, nodded slowly, and retreated into the hallway, his shoulders slumped. As the door clicked shut, Laura let out a breath. She had work to do. In her eyes, Tim was just another cog in the machine, a junior analyst still finding his way. But that dismissal would come back to haunt her. The launch day approached, the office buzzing with excitement. Laura felt the energy in her veins as she stepped into the conference room where her presentation would be the centerpiece of the morning. The room filled with the upper management team, their eyes fixated on her. She was in her zone, but somewhere in the mix of presentations and strategy talks, she caught whispers of Tim's name drifting across the room. Something about how he'd found a new angle on the product's marketing strategy. Curious, she looked over, spotting Tim sitting with his head held high, presenting his ideas to the exact executive she had just dazzled. An unexpected twinge of anxiety surged inside her. Had she really underestimated him? Was he not just a junior analyst, but someone capable of making waves in the company? When the meeting ended, Laura hurried back to her desk, an unsettling knot tightening in her stomach. She pulled up the latest internal memos and found herself staring at an announcement that made her heart race. The official list for elevator access to the executive floor had just been updated. Tim's name was on it. No way. How had he risen so quickly? The words scrolled across her mind like a news ticker replaying an embarrassing moment. She had dismissed him without a second thought, and now he was entering the zone she aspired to occupy. The realization hit her like a slap. She felt anger mostly directed at herself. How could she have been so blind to someone who was clearly capable? For days, she had turned a blind eye to his growing confidence, and now it felt like she had given away a game she could have easily won. The murmurings of Tim's success rippled throughout the office. He had become a hot topic, and everywhere she turned, people praised his fresh perspectives. They gushed. Every time she heard his name, her heart sank a little deeper. How could she reconcile the ambitious, confident leader she wanted to be with the reality of her dismissive behavior? The conflict darkened her once bright enthusiasm for the upcoming campaign. Then came the day of the launch. The excitement in the air was electric, and the board was lined up, eager to hear Laura's grand vision. But lurking at the back of her mind was Tim, now a formidable contender. Would he overshadow her once and for all? As she stood at the podium presenting her well-crafted strategy, she caught sight of Tim, seated near the back, a knowing smile on his face. Each slide Lewis derived felt like a weight dragging her down, the praise she sought slipping further from her grasp. When she finished, applause filled the air, but as the executive team began to comment, Tim's name slipped from their lips once more. "Tim, your insights were invaluable in shaping this strategy," one of them remarked. Laura felt a knot twist in her stomach. She should be reveling in her triumph, but instead she felt her moment eclipsed. After the meeting, she couldn't help it. She had to confront him. As Tim was leaving, she called out Tim. He turned, eyes wide as if expecting a reprimand. The words felt clumsy as they rose in her throat. "I want to apologize for how I brushed you off. Your contributions matter." Surprise flickered across his features. "Thank you, it means a lot to me." They stood there, the tension between them palpable. Laura felt both relief and embarrassment. The start of something new, the possibility of building a partnership instead of rivalry began to blossom between them. Days turned into weeks, and their newfound collaboration flourished. Laura started to lean into Tim's insights instead of shutting them down. The team dynamic shifted, ideas flowed more freely, and every meeting felt charged with potential. Through discussions over coffee breaks and late-night brainstorming sessions, they built a rapport that surprised even them. For the first time, Laura found joy in sharing the spotlight. Tim was no longer just another analyst, he was a true partner. Then came an unexpected twist. The quarterly review meeting loomed, and both felt the weight of expectations. Their presentation was set to highlight the progress they had made together. As they stood at the front of the room, with executives lined up and weighing their words, Laura felt the familiar flutter of nerves. But this time it was exhilarating. She wasn't in this alone. Tim stood beside her, an equal partner ready to shine just as brightly. When it was time for Tim to speak, he took a deep breath, ready to unveil their collaborative efforts. "I'm really excited to share what we've created together," he began, his voice steady and filled with conviction. Laura watched him shine as he shared their insights, weaving together data and creativity. She realized they had built something meaningful, something that transcended individual ambitions. As he spoke, she felt pride swell within her. This was the partnership she had been missing all along. When they finished, the room erupted in applause. The head of the board, Mr. Reynolds, leaned forward with a twinkle in his eye. "Incredible work, both of you. I can see the effort and creativity you've poured into this." Success washed over them like a tidal wave, and as they exited the meeting, Tim turned to Laura, his eyes dancing with joy. He exclaimed. "Together," Laura replied, a genuine smile gracing her lips. This moment wasn't just a win, it was a testament to how far they'd come. The dismissal, the doubts, everything that had stood in their way melted away into something beautiful. Later that week, Laura received another email. It was the updated executive elevator access list. As she scrolled down, her heart raced. Tim's name had become permanent. He had truly arrived. She couldn't help but feel a flood of mixed emotions. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the journey they'd taken together. Their roles had shifted, and in giving him her respect, she had unlocked her potential and grown in ways she hadn't expected. Over lunch, sitting across from Tim, she brought up the list. "I saw it," she said, a twinkle of excitement in her voice. "You're officially on the elevator access list." Tim's face lit up. "I can't believe it. It's It's more than just access, she replied, her eyes narrowing slightly with sincerity. It's proof that what you bring to the table matters. Their conversation flowed, rich with camaraderie, as they both recognized how deeply they had learned from one another. The dynamic that had existed months ago felt like a distant memory, a reminder of how dismissals could be transformed into opportunities. As the weeks went on, their partnership continued to flourish. They became a well-oiled machine, bringing creativity and strategy to every project they tackled, their names mingling among the charts and graphs of their successes. One afternoon, as they prepared for another presentation, Laura paused. "You know, I often think about that day you came to my office, how I dismissed you." He smiled, a knowing glint in his eyes. "We all have our moments." The sunlight streamed through the glass walls, illuminating the path ahead. "It's a lesson I won't forget," she said. "Your voice is powerful." Tim nodded. In that moment, Laura understood the subtle power of respect, collaboration, and second chances. She had dismissed a voice that needed to be heard, and in recognizing that, she opened the door for both of them to truly rise. As they stepped into the elevator together for yet another meeting, the familiar doors slid shut behind them. Laura glanced at the access card hanging from Tim's neck. It symbolized so much more than just privilege. It represented growth, challenges overcome, and the beautiful journey of transformation they had taken together. With a smile playing on her lips, she leaned closer to Tim, ready to conquer whatever came next. They were no longer just two individuals battling for recognition. They were a formidable team, rising together, ready to take on the world. The elevator doors slid shut with a soft hiss, drowning out the chaotic sounds of the office. In that brief moment of solitude, Sarah felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. She was on her way to a vital meeting, one that could make or break her career. As the elevator climbed, a sense of unease gnawed at her. Just days before, something had happened that left her feeling unsettled. Tim, a junior analyst, had come to her with concerns about the budget projections, but she had been too focused on her own agenda. "It's just a minor detail, Tim. We'll adjust it later," she had said, waving off his worries like pesky flies. As she recalled his disappointment, unease morphed into regret, twisting in her stomach. She had brushed him aside without a second thought, dismissing his dedication. Was it really a minor issue? What if it was something more significant? When Sarah finally arrived at the executive floor, her anxiety clawed at her. She stepped into the stylish conference room, its sleek furniture and large windows radiating power. The senior executives seated around the table eyed her expectantly. She took a deep breath, pushing her worries aside. This meeting had to go perfectly. As she presented her ideas, her mind raced, but the reality of her earlier dismissal hovered in the back of her mind. Tim had been sitting in the corner during the presentation, headphones in, flipping through documents, seemingly focused. Yet something about his posture told her he was deeply engaged, even if he didn't look like he belonged in that room. The meeting unfolded with typical corporate tension, excitement mixed with trepidation. Heads nodded, but the atmosphere felt charged. Then one of the executives leaned forward, scribbling notes. He asked, glancing at the meticulous figures laid out on the screen. Sarah's facade cracked for a moment. The executive turned to him. At that moment, Sarah's heart sank. Tim looked up, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. Yes, well, I noticed some variances that might affect our results," he began, his voice steady, gaining confidence with each word. Sarah watched in stunned disbelief as Tim unveiled a plan that made her previous projections look naive. Executives nodded, expressions transforming from curiosity to interest. How had she not seen this before? As the meeting concluded, people shook his hand, praising him for his insight. Sarah felt a knot tightening in her chest. What had she done? The very person she had dismissed was now shining, elevating himself right before her eyes. Later that week, as she poured herself a cup of coffee, she overheard conversations swirling around the break room. Tim's name was being celebrated, talked about like a new star in the corporate constellation. Someone said. Sarah's heart raced. She knew the elevator access list was an exclusivity badge, marking those who had power within the organization. What if Tim's name appeared on that list? Could it be possible? In that moment, she was gripped by a wave of envy and regret. She had dismissed his concerns, held the reins with her authority, and now he was set to surge ahead while she felt herself slipping back. The list was released later that afternoon, and with trembling hands, Sarah opened the email. There it was, boldly typed in black and white: Tim Thompson, Junior Analyst Access, Executive Elevator. Her world spun on its axis. How could she have been so blind? Tim was not just another employee. He held value that she had grossly underestimated. Dismissal had cost her the chance to recognize a talent that might have accelerated her own path to success. All week, she struggled with this reality. As she cringed at the thought of Tim's elevation, she felt a darkness creeping over her optimism. What would it take for her to make this right? On Monday morning, Tim walked through the office with a newfound air of confidence. He held his head high, conversations anticipating his every insight. It made Sarah's stomach churn, a bitter mixture of jealousy and self-reflection swirling within her. After a few days, she couldn't keep her silence any longer. She had to talk to Tim. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting golden rays through the office, she summoned the courage to approach him at his desk. His eyes widened slightly, revealing a hint of surprise. Settling into a chair across from him, she felt the weight of her words pressing against her tongue. "I want to apologize for how I treated you before. When you came to me about the budget, I didn't listen." Tim looked taken aback, and for a fleeting moment, uncertainty crossed his face. "Thank you, Sarah, I appreciate that." His response dug deep into her heart. She hadn't just dismissed his complaint, she had overlooked the importance of collaboration, disregarding the value of every voice in the room. They exchanged a moment of quiet understanding, a connection forming anew. Days turned into weeks, and their interactions shifted. Sarah made a conscious effort to engage Tim in discussions, seeking his input rather than brushing it off. Their relationship evolved. He became not just an analyst, but a valuable partner. Each brainstorming session felt richer, the ideas flowing freely between them. In this partnership, Sarah began to see her own growth unfold. She no longer felt threatened by Tim's success. Instead, she marveled at the new dynamics they were creating together. Then came the company's next major project, a high-stakes marketing campaign that could reshape their reputation. Anxiety washed over her, but with Tim by her side, she felt a surge of confidence. This time they were preparing together, pooling their strengths. As the project neared its deadline, their collaboration flourished. Tim brought ideas and strategies Sarah would have never considered alone. In return, she guided him, refining the details and giving him a platform to shine. They balanced each other like the perfect dance partners. When launch day arrived, the room buzzed with anticipation. After presenting their collaborative strategy to the executives, both felt disbelief settle in as the room erupted with applause. Their hard work had not only paved the way for success, but also laid the foundation of a new partnership. Outside the conference room, adrenaline surged through them. The head of the board approached, his face lit with approval. "Impressive work, you two." As he walked away, Tim turned to Sarah with a beaming smile. "We really did it," she nodded, warmth flooding her chest. Their partnership had helped her grow in ways she thought impossible. Right then, Sarah knew that it was not a competition. It was about raising each other up, creating actions filled with purpose and learning from one another. Weeks passed, and with each success, Sarah felt more aligned with her values. She had learned to embrace feedback from everyone, regardless of their title. During this period, Tim's name was promoted regularly, each mention reminding her of how she had once underestimated him. One evening, as they worked late, a sense of exhilaration washed over them. "Doing this together changed everything for us," Tim said, choosing his words carefully. She smiled. "You've shown me the value of collaboration. You opened my eyes to your talents." That exchange lingered in the air like a golden thread weaving through their evolving partnership. They had journeyed from misconceptions and dismissal to respect and collaboration. Then one quiet afternoon, Laura received a special email, the latest executive elevator access list. Her heart raced as she opened the document. When she saw Tim's name boldly visible, accompanied by her own, a sense of triumph flooded her. He had earned his place, but so had she. This wasn't just about the elevator, it was about the power that came from embracing vulnerability and understanding the impact of collaboration. When she looked up, she observed Tim across the room, deep in conversation with another colleague. In that moment, she realized that this was the beauty of their shared experiences, the bonds formed through mutual respect and growth. With every success, the past faded. The dismissal, the doubts all transformed into opportunities to learn. She had not only witnessed Tim's ascent, she had played a significant role in it. As the seasons changed and new projects loomed on the horizon, Sarah felt ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they could conquer more than either could achieve alone. Their relationship had become a testament to the power of connection, a reminder that every voice, even the ones we overlook, has the potential to guide us to new heights. And in that realization, Sarah had found a purpose deeper than she had ever known. With the sun setting over the city, casting familiar shadows across the landscape, Sarah smiled. They would ride the elevator together, stepping into new possibilities and opportunities, both eager to embrace the future side by side. The morning sun streamed into the glass-walled office, illuminating the faces of ambitious employees hustling through the day. Sarah sat at her desk, her fingers flying over her laptop keyboard as she meticulously crafted the marketing strategy for a new product launch. Today was crucial. She could feel it in her bones. This campaign could catapult her career to new heights, and she wouldn't let anything stand in her way. But then came a familiar knock on her door. It was Jake, a junior analyst whose reputation for being overly cautious preceded him. His brow was knit with worry as he stepped inside. "Sarah, do you have a moment? I need to discuss some concerns about the budget projections for the launch," he said, his voice wavering slightly. She glanced at him, then back at her screen, irritation bubbling beneath the surface. "Jake, can't this wait?" He shifted, looking unsure. "Discrepancies, it's just a few numbers on a spreadsheet. We'll adjust them as we move forward," she replied, cutting him off sharply. Her tone was icy, dismissing him as if he were a trivial distraction in her busy day. His shoulders slumped slightly and regret flickered in his eyes. "Okay, I understand," he mumbled, stepping back out of the office. As the door clicked shut, a heavy silence replaced the tension in the air. Sarah felt a pang of guilt, but she quickly shoved it aside. She had important tasks to tackle, and dismissing his concerns seemed like the right decision at the time. Days rolled on and the office buzzed with anticipation for the product launch. But when Sarah looked around, she noticed the shift in the dynamic. People were buzzing about Jake. Whispers filled the air. "Did you see his latest insights?" Frowning, Sarah couldn't help but notice that he had gained traction. Increasingly, she heard talk of him being involved in critical discussions, even being called upon to present in meetings she had been preparing for too. Then came the pivotal moment. As the deadlines approached, the company circulated the latest executive elevator access list, a prestigious document that determined who could reach the higher levels of the building where power and decisions resided. Sarah didn't think much of it until she opened the email and scanned down the list. Her heart sank as she saw his name, bold and clear: Jake Thompson, Junior Analyst Access, Executive Elevator. A wave of shock washed over her. Hadn't she brushed him off? Hadn't she overlooked his contributions? Suddenly, an inexplicable mix of envy and regret flooded her mind. How had she missed this? In the race for recognition, she had sidelined a rising star, someone who dared to challenge the status quo. As days turned into weeks, Sarah watched as Jake's reputation soared. He presented ideas that garnered respect even from the top executives. The same people she had assumed would carry her to success were now watching him. Each compliment directed toward him felt like a stab in Sarah's chest. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. In the break room one morning, amid cheerful chatter, she caught Jake. "Hey Jake," she called, her voice carrying across the clinking of coffee cups. He looked a bit wary as he approached. Taking a deep breath, she plunged into the apology she had been rehearsing quietly in her mind. "I wanted to talk about the other day when you came to me with those budget concerns." He blinked, surprised. "Thanks, Sarah. I really just wanted to ensure everything ran smoothly." She nodded, a rush of relief washing over her. The exchange felt like a small step toward rebuilding trust, but Sarah was still grappling with her own insecurities. She was aware of her previous behavior, and the disappointment weighed heavily on her shoulders. Weeks passed, and Sarah started making a conscious effort to include Jake in discussions. She surprised herself by leaning into his expertise. Every brainstorming session became a battleground of ideas, an opportunity for both of them to shine. Conversations flowed, and unexpectedly, the energy in the room shifted. They were building something special together. As the project developed, they spent late nights in the office, huddled over ideas on a whiteboard. With every passing day, she saw Jake grow more confident, and it warmed her heart to witness his evolution. Then came the day they had both been waiting for, the final presentation to the executives. The stakes were sky high, but as they prepared, anxiety was laced with a sense of camaraderie. For the first time, it felt like they were on the same team, not just competitors in the cutthroat corporate ladder. When they entered the conference room, the executives were seated, ready to hear their pitch. The weight of their combined efforts hung thick in the air, but both Sarah and Jake knew this was their moment. As Sarah began outlining their strategy, she glanced at Jake. He projected confidence and authenticity, a stark contrast to the timid analyst she had shrugged off weeks earlier. When it was his time to speak, he stepped up, addressing the board with eloquence. "I believe our approach can genuinely transform the launch and appeal to our target audience," he stated, articulating insights that captivated everyone. Sarah couldn't help but feel proud of him. This was the partnership she had longed for, a shared vision. When the presentation concluded, applause erupted. The executives exchanged glances, clearly impressed with the depth of their work. In that moment, Sarah felt a rush of triumph, a recognition she had previously sought for herself but had now shared. Tim's success was intertwined with hers, a beautiful tapestry crafted from collaboration. Weeks turned into months, and their partnership flourished. Jake became a key player in the department, earning accolades and leaving behind the shadows of his earlier days. Sarah could hardly keep up with the evolution. It took her breath away. One morning, as they sat down to revisit their project goals, she felt a familiar twinge of anxiety. The release of the quarterly performance results was approaching, and with it, another opportunity to showcase their combined success. "Jake, we've got to be ready for this," she said, her voice brimming with eagerness. He nodded, determination sparkling in his eyes. But as the performance results rolled in, the buzz throughout the office was electric. A great campaign was unfolding, and sharp minds gathered to make the most of it. Excitement coursed through Sarah, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she felt a surge of belief in not only herself but in them as a team. When they gathered in the conference room to unveil their findings, Sarah sensed the stakes had never been higher. The room filled with senior executives, each of them representing the very hierarchy Sarah had once been consumed by. As they presented, Sarah could see sparks igniting in Jake's eyes. He spoke passionately about their journey and the data they had collected. The room fell silent, enthralled by the depth and clarity of their conclusions. "This is the new direction we need," Jake stated confidently, driving home the point about their research. A murmur of approval rippled through the board members. Sarah felt time slow as she watched their reactions. Each nod, every approving glance felt like a reaffirmation of their partnership. When the dust settled, the executives were buzzing with excitement. They had money on the line, and after a pivotal vote, it came down in favor of implementing their strategy. They were on the brink of monumental success. That day, as she stepped out of the conference room, she knew they had forged a bond that transcended competition. They had transformed from two individuals into a dynamic powerhouse. As days turned into weeks, awards began rolling in recognition for their combined achievements. And as Sarah opened up about her role in Jake's success, praise came not just her way but for him as well. The world was finally recognizing Tim's contributions after Sarah had once brushed him aside. But even in their glory, the past still lingered. One afternoon, as the sunlight poured through the office windows, she spotted the latest elevator access list pinned to the wall. Her heart raced as she scanned the list for their names. There they were: Sarah Miller, marketing lead; Jake Thompson, junior analyst. The realization hit her hard. This was the moment she realized how beautifully intertwined their success had become. Jake approached, his brow furrowed with confusion. "Just looking at the access list," she replied, pointing at the paper. "Feels surreal, doesn't it?" He smiled, the light in his eyes unmistakable. "Honestly, it feels amazing. And we did it together," Sarah added, pride swelling in her chest. The distance that had once defined them began to dissolve. They had both risen through collaboration and respect for one another. As they prepared for another project together later that week, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had learned that sometimes growth comes from the most unexpected places. Jake's insights and determination had taught her the importance of listening, not just to her own voice, but to those around her. And so, as they stepped into the elevator that day, Sarah felt a renewed sense of hope. The doors slid gently shut, sealing them in a world of opportunities that felt limitless. Together, they had turned dismissal into partnership, and every ascent they took together served as a reminder of the strength found in collaboration. It was more than just an elevator, it was a symbol of their journey. They would continue to climb higher, forge ahead, and reach new heights, not as individuals, but as a united force against every challenge that lay ahead. The future was bright, and they were ready to embrace it together. The bright fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead as Sarah Frost sat at her desk, focusing intensely on her computer screen. She was deep into preparing for the launch of a new product line that she believed would secure her position as a leading force in the company. Just beyond her door, the rhythmic tapping of keyboards and low hum of office chatter created an ambient noise that fueled her concentration. A knock interrupted her thoughts. It was Jake, a junior analyst whose presence she had grown accustomed to ignoring. His frazzled look suggested he carried an important message, but she wasn't in the mood for distractions. Sarah," he asked, stepping into her cramped office, the folder in his hands looking like a lifeline. She sighed, glancing at the clock. "Can it wait, Jake? It's about the budget report." His voice carried a hint of urgency, and she could sense his passion. Sarah shrugged, uninterested. "I'll make adjustments as needed," she waved a hand dismissively. She could almost see the disappointment wash over his face as he stepped back, his energy deflating like a punctured balloon. "Okay, I understand. Thinking isn't what we need right now." It was a harsh dismissal, and as the door clicked shut behind him, Sarah felt a fleeting pang of guilt, but she quickly brushed it aside. She needed to focus on her own path. Days turned into a blur of meetings, late nights, and coffee-fueled determination. But every now and then she'd catch glimpses of Jake working hard at his desk. There was a fire in his spirit, a drive that intrigued her even as she felt compelled to ignore it. Then came the day that shattered her confidence. An email announcement flickered into her inbox. The executive elevator access list had been updated. Sarah's fingers froze over her keyboard as she hesitated, a mixture of curiosity and dread swirling within her. She had seen that access list before. It was a badge of honor, a marker of success. With bated breath, she opened the email. Scrolling down the list, her heart raced. There it was: Jake Thompson, junior analyst, access, executive elevator. The reality crashed over her like a wave. How had she missed this? Dismissing him so carelessly had clouded her vision. Jake was rising while she was still clinging to old beliefs. Anger at herself mixed with jealousy, and before she knew it, the thought engulfed her. Would she now be overshadowed by someone she had barely considered? As the days rolled on, Sarah noticed the shift in the office. Conversations shifted towards Jake's contributions, his fresh insights and innovative ideas that seemed to turn heads everywhere. She felt a tight knot tighten in her stomach whenever his name came up, her own past decisions haunting her like ghosts. In meetings, executives praised him openly, and she observed from the sidelines, grappling with the tangled emotions that chased her through every corridor. The same executives she had aimed to impress now looked at him with admiration. She felt like a passenger watching someone else drive the car she had built. Then it happened. One morning, Sarah walked into the conference room, prepared to present her latest strategies. The air buzzed with excitement, but a flutter of anxiety lodged itself deep within her. She felt out of place, overshadowed by the success of those around her. Seated across from her was Jake. He was calm, collected, the very definition of confidence that Sarah both admired and envied. As she launched into her presentation, she could feel his eyes on her, and suddenly her words began to falter. So our projections for the launch are, she swallowed hard, caught in the pang of self-doubt. Jake interjected gently, can I share my analysis of the new market trends? The room turned to him. The instant she heard his suggestion, her blood ran cold. How dare he suggest he could contribute to her presentation? But the board members were already leaning forward in anticipation. They valued his input, and she felt a flush of heat. Sure, she replied, her voice tighter than she intended. But he stood up, moving to the front of the room with a confidence that made Sarah's breath hitch. As his words cascaded over the audience, the executives were mesmerized. Her stomach churned as she watched him in awe, suddenly aware that he was no longer just her team member. He was a force to be reckoned with, the same force she had dismissed days before. After the meeting ended, applause rippled through the room, filling every corner like a symphony. But as the applause faded, Sarah stood frozen. Pride swelled in her chest for Jake, yet self-loathing clawed at her heart. How had she allowed herself to miss this? A heavy weight settled over her as she returned to her desk. The juxtaposition of emotions spiraled out of control. On one hand, she felt the thrill of Jake's success. On the other, her dismissive words echoed louder than they ever had. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Jake was called into more meetings, and with each passing day, he earned respect and admiration from everyone around him. A sharp contrast against her own stagnant position. One afternoon, Sarah was pouring herself a cup of coffee in the break room, a sense of dread hanging thick in the air. She flinched when she overheard two of her colleagues buzzing about Jake's latest presentation, their enthusiastic tones further amplifying the pressure mounting within her. Did you see how Jake handled those questions? One of them gushed. Sarah gripped the coffee pot tighter, her heart pounding in her chest. She had to do something. She couldn't let this moment pass without attempting to make amends. After all, he was claiming territory that she had believed to be her own. She called as she spotted him in the hallway, tapping away on his laptop. He stopped short, looking surprised. I wanted to talk, she said, trying to rein in the tension in her voice. Sure, he replied, curiosity lighting up his eyes. When the hour approached, Sarah felt a mix of anxiety and determination. She found Jake sitting at a coffee shop just outside the office. As the lively sounds of the cafe surrounded them, she took a deep breath. Thank you for meeting with me, she began, her voice trembling slightly. I've been thinking a lot about my behavior. I dismissed you, and honestly, I regret it. His expression softened. Thank you, Sarah. It's not easy being overlooked, especially when you're passionate about what you do. I know I made a mistake, but I want to learn, she said earnestly. Can we work together more? Absolutely, he replied, the warmth in his response easing her tension. With each word, the vulnerability Sarah felt dissipated, replaced by a sense of hope. She saw in Jake a different leader, a person who could elevate her not just professionally but personally as well. And so they began a transformative collaboration. Nights turned into sessions spent strategizing, brainstorming, and sharing ideas that flowed freely between them. It felt like a dance to souls, crafting something meaningful from the ashes of previous missteps. The dynamic shifted rapidly. Their meetings became electric, each interaction layered with respect and understanding. Jake's grounded mindset offered a balance to Sarah's unyielding ambition, and together they worked like a well-oiled machine. As they prepared for the upcoming quarterly review meeting, joy bubbled up within her. Their progress had been extraordinary, and Sarah felt more confident than ever with Jake by her side. But deep down, the rhythms of uncertainty still danced in the back of her mind. The day of the review arrived, and the room pulsated with energy. Executives occupied the table, eyes on the two of them. The tension was palpable as Sarah took the lead, presenting their strategies with renewed fire. But when she turned the floor over to Jake, all eyes were on him, anticipation palpable. He began speaking, and Sarah watched him transform. He had grown into a poised leader, effortlessly conveying the insights they had crafted together. By leveraging the data we have, he passionately articulated, we can clearly see a shift in consumer behavior. The executives were captivated. At that moment, Sarah saw Jake not just as a junior analyst, but as a partner who could elevate them both. One by one, the executives expressed their admiration for the strategy, and when it was over, the room erupted into applause. As she stepped out of the vibrant atmosphere, adrenaline coursed through her. Their success felt monumental, like a door had finally opened wide. But amidst the celebration, a nagging feeling clung to Sarah, a reminder of the tumultuous road they'd traveled. The next day, they were called into a follow-up meeting. As they entered, Sarah could feel the tension rising once more. All eyes were focused on them. The head of HR leaned forward, a serious expression settling on his face. We've seen remarkable progress since you began collaborating, he said, surveying the room. His words echoed through her mind as he continued, but her focus shifted to Jake. She could see the flicker of hope in his eyes. We're recommending changes to the executive elevator access list. Tim, you and Sarah. Suddenly, the room felt suffocating as her heart raced. What was he about to say? Time froze as the realization washed over her. But then she witnessed a flash of something unexpected in Jake's expression and unease that mirrored her own. Wait, does that mean Sarah's been? Before he could finish, a door creaked open on the far end of the room. A sudden burst of energy filled the air, and Sarah turned just in time to see the CEO step inside, carrying an air of authority that made everyone fall silent. "Forgive my intrusion," he said, surveying the room. As he began speaking, Sarah's mind raced. The sudden shift in momentum felt like a storm brewing on the horizon. She exchanged glances with Jake, their own excitement tangled in uncertainty. What would this mean for them moving forward? Would they be swept along with the tide, or would a new wave crash over their hard-earned achievements? As the CEO's voice faded into the background, a single question echoed louder than the others. Had they truly climbed to the top together, or was this just the beginning of a greater struggle yet to come? The room felt alive with possibilities, but uncertainty lay thick in the air. The elevator doors loomed behind them, guarded by the weight of unspoken ambition and fear. Whatever came next, both of them would have to navigate not just their own desires, but the consequences of a world that often blurred the lines between success and competition. And in that uncertainty, as the CEO prepared to unveil the future, Sarah felt the first tremors of change ripple through her. Everything was about to shift once again, and neither of them would be able to predict where it would lead.